I'm not pragmatic about a lot of these things, but I will tell you the things that I feel really strongly about. No. Is it on? Maybe it's not working.
It's just working when you came in.
Yeah, I know. These things are like, this is a tough crowd.
There you go. I think you just have to really press.
Really press.
Really press and aim it at the TV.
We're gonna pause out. Okay, but I'm gonna define the rest of it. These are gonna be northern.
Recording in progress.
With the exception of Echinacea, I didn't include that because we know that's the case, right? Other native plants, and we won't use it as a.
If you do find batteries,
Yeah,
okay, yeah, that'd be helpful.
All right, everyone, good morning. Thank you for signing up to come to the Native Plant Symposium on this cold day. My name is Alicia Young. I am with Virginia Copper Center. I'm the environmental educator, and I'm happy to introduce Connie Schmotzer.
Very good.
She is from Extension Penn State, and she's a retired as a consumer horticulture educator in York County, where she worked for 22 years. In 2012, she spearheaded a 3-year pollinator trial at Penn State's Southeast Agriculture Research and Extension Center, trialing 84 species and cultivars of native plants for their attractiveness to pollinators. Continues to provide leadership for the trial garden as well as coordinating the Penn State Pollinator Friendly Garden Certification Program. And today she'll be presenting on native cultivars versus straight species and does it matter? So Connie, take it away.
Thank you, Alicia. Welcome everyone on this cold, sleety day. Very, very happy to be here and talk about this particular topic. Cultivars have been in the news now for quite a while. It was inevitable that when native plants became popular, and can everybody hear me okay? No? Okay. It was inevitable that when native plants became popular, definitely the market was going to start to capitalize on that. So you're seeing a flood of lots of cultivars of native plants coming in. So the question that I'm sure you have, and all the researchers had too, is, are those cultivars still functioning in the ecosystem, or are they simply a decorative plant to put in our yards? As you heard Dr. Talamy this morning, that's an important question because we need to make sure that our plants are supporting our insect populations, which literally are the bottom of the food web. Okay. So today I would like to present some of the arguments and some of the research that we have. The topic is complicated. There are native plant folks out there that say, you know, cultivars are not good at all because they can actually influence the genetics of other plants, of other native plants out in the restoration. I'm not going to get into that. I don't have that background, but I do want to get into some of the trials that have been have occurred in the last 20 years that can give us some guidelines in when we go shopping. What do we look for? Okay, so Alicia. Okay, I'm going to start with a few definitions so we're all on the same page. Native plants, you all know this already. They've evolved over thousands of years in a particular region. As you know, again, from Dr. Talamy this morning, they do form the basis of our ecosystem. They can be referred to in many different ways. The species, straight species, open pollinated, native species. And for the purpose of this talk, I'm going to refer to these as straight species, okay? Native cultivars, what are they? The word nativar I've never liked, but it's out there and you will see that. These are plants that have been deliberately selected, crossbred or hybridized for certain characteristics that can be maintained then strictly by vegetative propagation. Okay. Propagators are looking for a lot of different things. Some of these have to do with plant health. such as disease resistance, but others are strictly aesthetic. Okay, it's what they think the marketplace is going to want. It might be color, it might be a shorter plant, might be just lots of blooms, it might be big, audacious blooms that tend to appeal to us. Okay, so you can do these cultivars, you create these cultivars in a variety of ways. Natural selection is one of them. If you go out into the garden and you look at a population of plants, you will see that in the straight species, there's a lot of variation. This is Phlox paniculata in our trial gardens. They were all planted from a flat of straight species. Look at the color variation. There's a lot. And that's because the diversity of these plants is carried on the seed. So every time a seed is thrown and a new plant grows, it has different characteristics. Some of those might be more mildew resistant than others. Some of those plants might be hardier. Some might be shorter. Okay? So within any selection of straight species, there's
Color's a little
of
different.
variation.
And it's a cultivar that Mount Cuba has found that is
So when you
very,
go
very
out,
attractive to
the
pollinators,
wild,
and it is
and
mildew,
these plant
powdery
breeders
mildew
are doing this a
resistant.
lot.
So there are
Plant
reasons
collectors,
sometimes that
they might
cultivars are
see an
used.
individual
One
plant,
cultivar
but they
I use
say,
a lot
wow,
in my
you know,
designs
that
is
plant would
Rus
make a
aromatica,
great
grow
plant
low. It's
to sell.
a small
And they'll collect it,
stature
they'll bring it back,
sumac.
vegetatively
It's not the
propagate it.
poisonous version,
Because if you're
but
doing
it
cuttings
gives me
or
the small
tissue
stature
culture,
with all the
you're going to
other
get an exact
attributes
clone
of that plant.
When
So
you get into the seeds, then you start
these are
getting that
hybridized, but
diversity
a lot of them
happen
are sterile.
through
Recognize
seed.
it as the
The
same
Phlox
plant.
genna
It may
is
have
one of those natural
different
selections. I
anthocyanins
think it
in
was
it.
collected in
So when they
Tennessee.
ingest it, the chemicals
The
are
person who
different.
found it thought that
So
it was kind of,
picking your plant
mildew
as a
resistant,
straight species
and
is your
that's why
best
that plant
bet.
was selected.
It's the most safe way to go, and that's what I'm going to
You can
recommend.
also create
Let's see if we can
cultivars in other ways. And it goes from as simple as taking a natural selection and doing a lot of crossbreeding and really getting into a lot of complicated work.
It's not my day.
Crossbreeding
Okay.
generally
So
refers to
when in doubt,
taking
again, choose a
several
straight
plants
species.
of one species
Achillea millefolium
and
is common
crossing
yarrow.
them
It's
within
the
the
white yarrow.
species.
It's very vigorous
So Phlox
plant.
paniculata,
It's a great ground
we take
cover.
this Phlox
But
paniculata,
Achillea
and this
millefolium
one,
with the
they have
single
different-
quote, paprika is bright red with some yellow centers. And it may not be we don't know. Not every one of these has been tested, and it's not predictable which cultivar
I'll bet
is
that's
acceptable
confusing.
or not. But there is some really good research
So you need
at Mount
this.
Cuba.
I'm sorry to put, can I have this one? They are hearing next door.
You need this.
They're getting lots of information. They're actually experiencing.
Oh gosh. Roll with the punches, right?
Thank you.
Okay, so it's not possible to generalize and predict. So look at the research before you pick a cultivar is what I'm saying. So we need to be educated consumers, and you guys, this is the cream of the crop. I know I'm preaching to the choir here. So it's October skies, though, for instance, Symphenotrichum oblongifolium. It's a fall aster, gorgeous, and October skies was substantially better in a Penn State study for attracting pollinators than the straight species. So again, it's not predictable. The more hybridized, though, the less genetic diversity. Sometimes you get clones, they're not open pollinated. There's less resiliency too, because if you have less genetic diversity, it's going to be prone to more insult. So consult a reputable source. Penn State has some good research going on. Mount Cuba, of course, Doug Tallamy, to make wise decisions. So here's some links, and this will be recorded. Can you advance? So just a summary: native species versus nativars or native cultivars. Some native cultivars have been found in the wild, and they're just propagated that way. So you are getting some genetic diversity, but some cultivars are changed actually in the lab or through human effort. So native species are obviously a host, They're well adapted to the condition. They support our goals of biodiversity. They may be kind of hard to find sometimes, but again, a local vendor is gonna give you the best choice of that. They may look weedy, okay? So you may have to give up something, but they may not look weedy too. They can be a little less predictable. Given different conditions, they will grow differently. They provide native insects, and the bloom time usually coordinates with insect emergence, and that's what we really want. Of course, that's changing too with our weather patterns. So it may nativar may have advantages. It may be more disease resistant. It's more predictable what size it gets. It's more profitable, certainly for our garden centers. It's more available commercially. All our regular box stores and garden centers will be selling mostly cultivars. It lacks that genetic diversity. It may be less valuable. It also may be less adapted to hardiness. And Penn State had some interesting research on that. And it's likely patented, so it's not something you can legally share. Okay. We'll keep trying. Okay, so these are the best practices for any container garden, okay? Right plant, right place, obviously. Be thinking about, where am I gonna put this? And there's native plants for every condition. Clean your container in a weak bleach solution. Scrub it with a brush or steel wool. Remove the mineral deposits. So if it's a porous container, it can be porous. The container must have adequate drainage holes. This is my pet peeve. I found these beautiful pots. They're a good price and I want them, and they have no holes in them, you know, in the bottom. It's so frustrating. So I did get a bit for my drill. It's a ceramic and you can drill it, but man, it takes a while because you got to go slow so you don't crack it. I can see that you've done this. Choose your container based on the needs. I have this rocky place by my front sidewalk and my front door that's hot as the blazes in the summer. So I am not going to put a clay pot there or a black pot there that gets even hotter, that I'm going to have to water 3 or 4 times a day because the clay is permeable. Don't use any rocks or any filler. More on this later. Believe me. Just believe me. Container gardens, remember, and I'm probably going to say this more times than you want to hear, but there is a finite amount of nutrients in that soil. You are giving it a very small environment. So you're going to have to refresh that. You're going to have to give a container some, I would prefer a liquid organic fertilizer, but more on that. Bring porous containers in for the winter. If you get around to it, mine are still out. Water the soil, not the plants. Keep the leaves dry, okay? So you're gonna water, teaching my granddaughter to do that. Take that and make the soil around it wet, but not the leaves. No overhead spraying. Okay. A little bit about soil. Gardens, because we're talking about native plants, we're not talking about growing tomatoes or cucumbers in a pot. You can use garden soil. The trouble, and let me just say that clay soil is a wonderful soil. It has a lot of nutrients in it. It has it has capacity to attract chemically organic matter and water. It just doesn't have enough spaces between the particles. So you can use garden soil because that's what native plants want. And most of our soils have been upended and we have a lot of fill in our, so I'm not going to give you a prescription for soil. I'm going to make you think through the process with these next few slides. Remember, garden soil can contain some insects, weed seeds, disease organisms. Our birds are going to take care of some of those, right? Avoid peat, more on that in a minute, and make sure that the soil you select is well drained. And I'll give you some tips. Again, we're talking about a small amount of soil in that pot. Select light and fluffy growing medium. Good soil is about 50% air. And a lot of the soilless mixes or the potting soil is all over the map. So different. quality. Some smells funny, some looks like it's ground up pellets, and it might be. And some of the soilless mixes are actually hydrophobic. Translated, they're scared of water, okay? You let the water just float on top, and you can see that actually happening. You don't want that, okay? So the garden professors are University of Washington. They're a little controversial. They're a little dogmatic, but I still find a lot of great information there. And they have a really good site on many topics, but there's one on container gardening that I would refer you to for some of this information too, when you go home and you want to review. Okay, thanks. Oh, is it working? So peat is just slowly decomposing mosses, reeds, and sedges. Beautiful stuff. If you've ever hiked in the boreal forest up in Maine, fantastic. Squishy, really fun, found in waterlogged soils, and it usually contains sphagnum moss. But the destruction of our bogs is really affecting our ability to absorb that carbon dioxide, like what's his name, Doug, was talking about. It takes 10 years for 1 centimeter of peat to be formed. Okay, not a sustainable product. Okay, what's good container soil? Soil that lets the roots infiltrate. It provides for really good, sorry, did I knock that over? Root growth, can support the plant, and is disease and pest free. Again, small amount of soil. I know, I probably said that too many times. Peat-free potting soil, what are you going to use instead? Put those holes in that soil. It's important to see how the components that you purchased, whether you're using garden soil, some potting soil, you want to see how it's performing. You're going to use your brain. You're not going to just buy a package of potting soil. You're going to see how it drains. Test the drainage for yourself, because there's so much variety. If you use compost or bark, it changes over time. So, what starts out as okay and porous might get compacted over time. Builder sand and perlite are stable and they break down very slowly, so you can put some of that in. Again, some ingredients are hydrophobic. Okay, and most is about 50% air. So this is what you can use instead of peat. Check with garden centers. Many are starting to carry peat-free mixes. I had a long discussion with David Yost over at Merrifield about this and what his product contained. I'm still not sold that it's the best product, but I think they're working toward it. So make or buy good quality compost and experiment with the ratios. Watch how it drains. A mixture that drains well and has holes for air. Coconut coir can be a useful alternative, but if it gets dry, it's dry and it's hard to rehydrate it. So Maryland Grows has some good information. That's the University of Maryland Extension, and they have some information on peat-free potting mixes. And these are some of the ingredients that are found in peat-free mixes. So read the label. Does the soil have fertilizer in it? Usually unnecessary to have those micronutrients. Lime, it might be already in there. Volcanic rock might be in there for something that really likes lean, rough soil. Compost varies so dramatically, and it can be hydrophobic. So you need to be careful about where you're getting compost. Coir can be substituted for peat. It holds moisture well, but again, if it gets really, really dry, it's hard to rehydrate. Don't put manure in. Forest products, avoid those. Biosolids, I wouldn't put those in. Bark, maybe a little bit on top. The fines are usually good if you buy a really finely ground. Fungal inoculants are a waste of money, in my opinion. They usually are inactive by the time you purchase them. The shelf life is very short. They're very specific to certain plants. Here's a few peat-free mixes that I've used, but again, things change. Okay, so test it out. Make sure that you can get good draining from it. So this is why you don't put rocks or diapers or packing peanuts in the bottom of your pot. I know we're all getting older and it's hard to lift it, but when you have an interface between two surfaces, there develops a perched water table right above that surface. It just doesn't make sense to me, in my brain, but I have seen it happen. And what happens when you have that perched water table right above that rock layer is the water just sits and then the roots are in that water. So it should be a uniform mixture all the way through the pot. Get somebody to help you move it, put it on wheels. There are, or just to a small one. Again, the garden professors have more on that if you want to read more. So look at the potting mix, look at the particle size, and develop a standard. You may want to do this little experiment at home. Fill up 10 pots, tap it on the side so it settles, and pour the water through it. Did it drain in 30 minutes? Pretty good. Pretty good. Weigh all the pot. I'm not weighing all those. This is a science fair. But North Carolina has a substrate laboratory, and they have a lot of really good information on soils, and you can read more. That New York Times did an article on them. These are, this is a study that North Carolina did, and they grew in a soilless mixture, one peat-free mix on the left and a peat perlite on the right. And you can see the roots in a peat-free mix are good. And that's what you want. And the more roots you have, the more water that it's going to take up and nutrients. Huh? Yeah. Peat-free mix on the left, peat perlite on the right. Okay. So they were checking, does peat do it? And it did. I mean, it's a little less profuse, but still adequate. Let's talk about maintaining before we get to the fun designing stuff. Watering. Is it drooping in the morning? I learned this from Paige Thacker. Is it drooping in the morning? Then it needs water. Everybody droops in the afternoon. Okay. Is it drooping in the afternoon? Check your soil with your finger. And if it's not moist, like in the root zone, then you might need to water it. And some containers in the summer need to be watered twice a day. Really tedious after a while, but yeah. And remember, water the soil. Choose your container based on the water needs. If you want a plant that has dry roots, then pick clay because it's porous and it'll dry out quicker. But I use it judiciously in the summer because it dries out so darn quick. Water the soil, not the plant. And the more roots you have, the more water you need. So there's a sweet spot. Fast draining soil. That picture in the yellow is too dry, compacted. All the fertilizer is caked on top. And the one on the blue is too wet. And even though that right picture with the leaves drooping, it looks like it needs water, doesn't it? But some plants develop that when they are too wet, they roll like that. So use your judgment and use your finger to test it, and be wise about how much. So this is just a reminder from your college biology class about once it gets to the wilting point, it's too late. I have let mine dry out sometimes. Have you ever poured water on it and it kind of shakes? Have you ever seen your plant do that? It's like, I'm getting water. And there's one cartoon that says every time the plant sees you fill up your coffee pot, it's like looking longingly. Okay, so fertilizers. Container gardens have a finite amount of soil, so it's going to use it up in time. Okay, you can use organic or synthetic. I prefer organic because sometimes I dump my soil out at the end of the year into my yard, and I want it to be organic. I use a liquid fertilizer. There's a lot of good ones that are organic out there. dry is not so useful for containers because you have to add a lot of water for it to activate itself. It's mainly for lawns, if anybody has a lawn. And liquid is just so much easier to use. You want NP and K in it, 10-5-5, which is roughly 10% nitrogen, 5% potassium, phosphorus, and 5% potassium, or a 3-1-2. So just read the label, okay? And you don't want to, and there's more information on the garden myths, which is the University of Washington group. So choosing a container. Better growth in bigger containers. However, it can be too big. You can be too optimistic about how it's going to grow, and it's hard for it to get the water that it needs. A larger root zone will support more roots. You can pot them up, and then they can reach their final destination with some intermediate steps. You can read more about the pot size from the garden professors. The types of containers. Anybody use these bags? Yep. I find they dry out pretty quick. They look a little grungy after the second year. But anyway, I love these troughs. But there's so many choices. Clay, ceramic, plastic. There's advantages to all of them. The plastic don't dry out quite as quickly. The clay is very porous. It dries out. Some creative ideas. I really like this one. Those are old drainage tiles, like from a farm field. I have a couple of them in my yard, but there's, sky's the limit. Pinterest is full of it. Oh, so placement, beware of microclimates. Some places are really, really hot, right? And some places are cool and wet, but watch the sun angle and think about reflected heat. This would get incredibly hot with the reflected heat off of that cement. So remove the plant from its container, inspect the roots. They should look white and healthy, not smelly or slimy. Select the container with drainage holes if you can. Add the medium, and then make sure your medium has a nutrient charge like a slow release fertilizer, and you have to water it in too, okay? I was amazed when I have wine cups in my sunroom. I was amazed when I put fertilizer on them. They were like all blooming in the winter. It was, even I forget these things, I was like, I wonder why that isn't blooming. Put some fertilizer on it and it's gorgeous all winter. So here's a few things on design. How am I doing on time? Okay, so just a few. These are a little bit quick, but remember, you can take a picture of this. You can go back and listen to it later. Before I start up the pictures though, think in terms of sun, shade, wet, dry. You're thinking about where you might put a container. So designers always talk about frill, fill, and spill. It's a little bit of an idiom, cliche, but the thrill is the tall ones, the fill is the fill up the container, and the spill spills over the side. And I think it makes a lovely container, but do not be wedded to this. You do not have to do this, okay? No, don't let anybody tell you that. So let's look at some color wheel stuff. These are the hot analogous colors, the warm, and this is Ecologically, Pachara, and Zizia together, and they all bloom pretty much the same time. So I've tried to group the plants when they bloom together. I'm not promising that, okay? Don't hold me to this, because that plants do what they want to do. Here's some cool colors. Here's a penstemon and Iris cristata, dicentra, and geranium maculatum. Nice, cool colors. They take partial sun, and they bloom pretty early in the year. So remember the color chart, and that red and green always looks great with a poinsettia. But my favorite is purple and yellow, asters and goldenrod. So here's some complementary colors. This is Syncrium or blue-eyed grass, and the Zizia, Aria, Golden Alexander. I think those look really cool together. And Zizia has a very long bloom time. I'm very impressed with it. I have it covering about a third of my front yard. Here's some more complementary colors. I just planted Lilium Superbum this year, and I'm hoping that I don't kill it. And you can put some Carex in the pot around it. I haven't done that part yet. Okay, so these are going to be the signs that for different conditions. It'll be up in the upper right-hand corner. This one requires moist, full sun, which is about 6 hours, partial sun, less than 6 hours, shade. Okay, so let's go. Full sun in the spring. Aquilegia canadensis, or common yarrow. Zizia aurea, Zincrium, that blue-eyed grass, and Zizia aurea. So these would be full sun, early spring. Easy peasy container. This one's Aquilegia canadensis, or Eastern Columbine, Iris cristata, and a Carex to fill the pot. This one, Pacra, love Pacra. Hence, with a penstemon, there's the Pacra buds. I mean, is Pacra a great plant? Even the buds are cute. And then there's Penstemon digitalis and Fragaria virginiana. We put these at Montclair Library. But Robin Feinheit helped me design some planters there in front of the library and put a lot of Fragaria. That's the wild strawberry. It's not the weedy strawberry that we trying to pull out of our. This one I love, this combination. So there's phlox and dicentra or bleeding heart. Iris, can you tell I like Iris cristata? Foam flower. This would be a big pot, and penstemon, and then a geranium maculatum. So there's that combination. I love that combination. I might have to try that one. Oh, do you need me to go back? Did you get that? Okay. Here, this one, again, we're in partial sun, Tiarella, early spring bloomer, Achillea, and Phlox severicata. So full to partial sun, early summer. Now we're into the summer, and that columbine has seeded all over the place, and it's blooming again. It's Spigelia, fantastic plant. Coreopsis verticillata and Carex to kind of fill the pot in. I love that color combination. Partridge pea, this is an annual, seeds all over the place, nitrogen fixer, fantastic plant. You can put it in a pot. It grows so easy with Rudbeckia and Asclepias tuberosa, one of the milkweeds, the butterfly weed. So full sun midsummer, Liatris spicata. Look at those two together. Fantastic complementary colors. And here's a nice combination. I recommended this for in front of McCourt, but they didn't do it. But you guys, you can still get on them because we're supposed to be using native plants. So this is a grass in the middle. There's your, what is it called? Huh? Yeah, thrill. Thank you. I knew I'd have trouble finding words. And then the helenium or the sneezeweed, Panicum shenandoah is the grass, and that is a cultivar, and Rudbeckia fulgida and the yarrow. Yeah, the thrill. So, oh yeah. Okay, so this is Thomas Rainier's idea. He told me I could use it. He's a designer in Arlington, Virginia, Grounded Design. Fantastic blog, actually. So pink muley grass, I like, but it's not that reliable, and it's kind of short-lived, and it looks kind of scraggly most of the time until it blooms, and then it's fantastic. And Helianthus angustifolia is a really wonderful plant, but its legs look kind of messy during the season. So you could put the grass in front of the legs. And this is Thomas Rainier's idea. This is at the U.S. Botanical Garden. And I don't know if it's still there, but I thought that was an excellent idea. So here's another combination with the muley grass, and Achillea makes its appearance one more time, and the Rudbeckia. This one's pretty bright and sassy, Coreopsis and Echinacea, and then that butterfly weed. Go back. Am I going too fast? Okay, I am. I'll give you tutoring. Coreopsis verticillata. You can put a shrub in, but make sure you get the calicarpa. That's the American beautyberry and not the Asian version. Here's a New Jersey tea is the shrub that was also in the McCourt design, with some carex around the bottom and some coreopsis to brighten it up. Late summer to fall, sneezeweed, goldenrod, and there's that October skies aster. I like that color combination. I actually have these in my landscape just like that. So Atia, especially the little Henry cultivar, the smaller one, would do very nice in a pot. I'm going to put that in my daughter-in-law's container and put some carex around the bottom of it again. And that will need quite a bit of water. Okay, so carex sedge, not carrot. Pygnanthemum, the what's the common name? Mountain mint. Thank you. And this is one of my favorites. Veronicastrum looks like a little ballet dancer to me. And that Liatris pilosa, a really striking Liatris, blazing star. Another combination. Another mountain mint with asters. I mean, you're going to start thinking like this, I mean, take these home and do some picking. Are you getting tired of this? Okay, maidenhair fern and pachyra. The maidenhair fern is not, it's not evergreen, so it dies back. But this is the way it looks kind of in early spring when the pachyra is blooming. I might try that one. Heuchera americana, coreopsis. Oh, there's a heuchera leaf. And there's a lot of cultivars of heuchera out there. And they're every color imaginable. But they are not very sturdy. They're not long-lived plants. Okay, Heuchera americana seems to be, Adrian, is that what you found? Heuchera americana is much sturdier because it's the straight species. So do not pick the cultivars, pick the straight species. Carex. And there's and that's the leaves of the wood fern. Chrysogenum, green and gold, ground cover. And that is Solomon seal. I didn't put that on there. And there's the a fern with it. And I think these make a nice thrill. The ostrich ferns in the middle, and you can't kill an ostrich fern. And there's impatiens, and they kind of like the same wet treatment. Rus tafina, and nice fall color, nice fruiting, and some carex, plantain leaf carex. This is a friend of mine. This is a cultivar of Aruncus, a shorter one with rosy sedge and a heuchera. This is one I designed for a friend of mine in Fairfax Station. And she took these pictures for me. And I think the lighting is pretty cool. This is one from Izell Plant. Oh, sorry. Izell Plants posted this on their website. I thought that was a pretty cool, but that is a cultivar of heuchera. And I would pick Heuchera americana rather over a cultivar with caramel colored leaves or burgundy colored leaves. So this is a mint. What's the name of this? The common name of this mint? And then bottlebrush grass and Monarda punctata. I like this combination. So part shade, Lobelia sylvatica, Conoclinium, the blue mist flower, and some carex. Oops. Aragrostis, that's one of my very favorite native grasses. It's kind of short, it's very reliable, it's purple love grass, and put it with Cleone, it could still Cleon likes wet conditions. So here's another Carex blanda and Sedum tornatum, and Adrian has a fantastic bed of Sedum tornatum in the front of his yard, and some moss. That would be a cool, shady, moist patio type of container. And some vines that you can put in a container. There are some really fantastic little arbors that you can put in pots, you know, passion flower, and you might want to keep that Clematis virginiana in a pot because it does go a little nuts out of the pot. And then, you know, Virginia creeper would be lovely, and it does attract Japanese beetles, however. Laniceros sempervirens, you could do that in a pot, but please, when it gets too big for the pot, let it be free. So here's some trellises. I just bought one of these. I think those are cool. And you can make them out of wood. You know, who doesn't have a lot of branches down in their yard, right? So single species, these are fuzzy pink beans. And I don't even know how to say the Latin, but I love these, and I have these in pots and all over my yard now. Nodding onions, I put that in some clay pots, and it's done really great. Isn't that a beautiful plant? And I did grew these last year, the wild hyacinth, the native hyacinth, Amicia. Fantastic, short-lived, but I enjoyed them while they were there. Witch hazel, small witch hazel could go in it, but then for goodness sakes, move it out into the yard after you're done admiring it in the pot. Polycarpa with in a pot could do well, and you can cut Polycarpa back all the way to the ground every year if you wanted to. But again, you know, they want to be in the landscape eventually. So Yucca would be a nice container plant. I've seen some really dramatic in my travels. I like this. This is at the Mosaic, had that shopping area in Maryfield. They had a screen of horsetails. And horsetails likes a lot of water, and you probably should keep it in a pot because it does go a little crazy. But I think it's so dramatic and beautiful. Okay, Tia, you could put in a pot. Buttonbush wants to be out in the landscape, but you can start it in a pot, enjoy it, and then move it. So you can stagger these. This might be a good thing to stagger your blooms. Remember, we talked about bloom time all throughout the season. This is a way that you can, that I figured it out ahead of time so that you don't have to. And again, I'm not promising these bloom times. Got it? Okay, here's for part sun, some staggered bloom times. And for winter interest, and I just found out red twig dogwood is not native to Northern Virginia. However, it's okay to use it. I know that. Ilex verticillata, you can start it in, it likes wet, okay? Okay, so there's lots of help out there. When I first did this presentation 10 years ago, when I started it, there wasn't much out there on container gardening with natives. And Plant Nova natives called me and asked me to help write something, and I couldn't really find anything. But now there's tons of stuff. So you don't have to rely on me, okay? This is the Northern Virginia Bird Alliance. They have a table out there. Master gardeners can do and Maria has had containers on her balcony when she lived in an apartment and attracted all sorts of critters. Just amazing. So even if you live in a small area, a townhouse, you can do this. Even Doug Tallamy has container gardening with natives now, part of his website. You can go there, and he's got some combinations that I don't have. And he has keystones included in that. There's more reading on just the native art topic. Again, from Mount Cuba and Penn State. And resources, too many resources. You know, there's so much information. But what a wonderful thing to have resources. Earthanga, yeah, that's, so they're in Springfield, Virginia, you know them? They're a nonprofit in Springfield, Virginia. They collect all local ecotype seeds. And then they do conservation projects, but they also have a nursery that they have sales at, or you can, it's such a great resource. We are so lucky to have them in Northern Virginia. And you know that it's going to be a straight species that's local. And that's really, really important. Okay, I think, oh, now it stops working again. There. And there's a hooker. This is from Isel Plants too. They're an online resource.
So for questions, we are gonna, thank you everybody in the chat for bearing with us. We will alternate between the chat and the in-person group. So if you want to
Sure.
start in the room.
We'll do one here. Yeah.
My question is, okay, do you dump out your container and wash it every year and then replant? But a lot of these are perennials, so they just come back on their own?
I don't always wash it out. If it had trouble or it grew mushrooms in it, I've had all sorts of then I'll dump it out and start over. But and then I'll put that soil into another bed. Yeah, but I don't do it every year. No.
Okay, and the perennials will come back.
They will, but make sure they have enough room. Yeah.
The chat says, I've had trouble with butterfly weed, not liking to touch other plants in the pot or even my small yard. I've had to keep it by itself. Am I doing something wrong?
I don't know. Does anybody know? I do not have all the answers. I have not had that trouble, but maybe there's something chemical going on. Doug? I'm sorry, I don't know the answer.
I always, in planting in containers, I always worry that it's not deep enough and there just isn't enough for the roots. So is there a guideline or something like certain plants we should avoid because their roots need to go really deep? Or
I think native grasses definitely go very, very deep. So you're going to need a bigger pot for that and to move them out eventually into the landscape or give them away. So native, and there's some rhizomatous plants that really, like, there's some goldenrods that grow by rhizomes very aggressively. They would take up the whole pot underground and you wouldn't even know that the other things are suffering. So yeah, there are some. And as far as plant size, that Garden Professors, if you Google Garden Professors container garden size or something, I think you can find out some good guidelines. But rhizomatous plants in general and grasses definitely will take up their real estate in the pot a lot, rather aggressively. You're welcome.
The chat is asking, is it difficult to find peat-free potting soil? Any recommendations?
Yeah, I would go to not a big box store, not a hardware store. I would go to a garden center and say, what peat-free mixes do you have? And you can use those 4 that I showed you there. Rose, I think it's Rosy Soil, Back to Basics. So the 4 that I said, I know major garden centers do sell that Fox Farm stuff, and that's peat free. Not all of them are peat free. Some of them are. So you got to read the label. No, they just sell plants. They don't sell soil. I need a little break here. Two people have a little yellow Post-it note under their chair. Because life isn't that fun right now. We have to make it more fun.
We have one we found.
Who? Raise your hand. All right.
Scarf.
Okay, so this is a container garden for you. It's got Pacra and Iris cristata in it, and it's gonna need a bigger pot because this is all I had. So Who's the other one? Come on, Aaron. You on an okay? Who's closest?
It's like finding a baseball at a
Who's
baseball game.
who's? Oh, thank you. Adrian's with Be America, native plant design installation, and he knows a ton of stuff. So pick his brain too. Somebody. Oh, damn it. Okay, this is the same thing. Iris cristata, I didn't label them. Iris cristata and Pachyra. Okay, next question. Do we have time?
Yeah, do we have an in crowd question?
How do you know when it's time to put it in the garden from the container?
That's a good question. I think when it's starting to struggle, looking a little peaked, getting too big, you're sick of looking at it. I mean, native plants they're getting nutrients way out around. And so, there will be signs. You can call me.
Right, the chat is asking, can you recommend a bulletproof native, preferably a tallish thriller one, for a blazing hot southwest facing balcony?
Yeah, I think that Aragrostis would probably be okay, or that Shenandoah switchgrass. It's going to get big though eventually, but it will be thrilling in the pot for a year or so. Blazing Star, Liatris spicata, that's good. Helianthus, not the Divaricata, but Angustifolia. That's pretty tall. Right. Is that enough?
I think that's a good start for them.
Okay. Uh-oh, Leanne.
Do I have to push something? Oh, how long can I keep blueberry bushes in pot?
Are they doing okay?
Yeah, they seem to be. They're
Yeah.
fairly new. They're only about, maybe this is the third year, and they're producing fruit.
Okay. How about the growth on the stems? And does that seem pretty
Yeah,
good?
Seems pretty good.
And you're doing a little bit of pruning off some of the.
I just pruned the other day
Yeah.
a little bit. Yeah.
I think you will know. I would say 3 years, maybe 3 or 4 in pots. In pots. Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, work the crowd. Yeah, Jimmy.
Maybe move them into grow bags. Maybe.
Grow bags, yeah. That's a great. Or you could get one of those troughs. Of course, they like acidic soil, so maybe not. Do we have them at the teaching garden in containers? Are they doing better? Oh, that's right. The soil there is funky, isn't it? Okay. Okay, maybe put it in the right spot. They do like it wet though, but maybe not that wet. Yeah.
So I have a question about Promix, which is peat, and with microniazole things in there. So the question about peat, I was taught in New Jersey, where there's wonderful soil on the west, on the shore side, to use the Promix for starting seed, and then start feeding it with half mix, half strength. Jax is usually just some commercial, and then quarter mix sometimes, because it only fed for the 5 days. So
Right.
that's the way we grew those. But I thought I could mix that peat with other things too, but you're suggesting.
You can,
You
but
can.
you can.
It's expensive, is that the deal?
I
Or-
love ProMix. I don't have
Okay.
anything against ProMix except for it's not sustainable. It is not a product that we can keep relying on. We
Right.
need to find alternatives. You saw how long it takes to get that peat and harvest it. And if we
Yes.
keep depleting that's my issue.
Well,
It's
that was
not,
the
it's
other-
not that
yeah.
I don't like it.
Okay. I also learned that most of it comes from one place in Canada, and it's the ditch where they're digging it out of is quite not returning itself to
No,
itself. So
It can't.
that's the issue with. Okay.
Yeah, but thank you for raising that. Good question.
I've got 2 in the chat. Yes, there'll be copies of slides, and this whole day is going to be recorded for those in the room and on chat to review at any time that you'd like. Just give us a week or 2 to get them on. And then we have another question saying, because the fabric bags root prone, could you keep natives in them longer, but needs lots of water?
Well, they are porous, so you need to monitor the water for sure. And again, it's going back to when is it too big for the pot? I think grow bags are a great alternative. Did I answer that question? What?
The roots go straight through the bed as well.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So you just cut them. Yeah. You just can cut them if they're going to grow through. I've never had that happen. Have you had that happen?
Is there a question over here?
Thank you. This has been really interesting. I'm curious. I've always been taught with natives that they like our crummy Virginia soil, but we're talking here in containers about fertilizing and using what would be much more rich soil. But how do we keep them from flopping? Like in parts of my garden where I amended the soil before, I learned that you shouldn't. Stuff gets very leggy and flops all over the place. So can you help me?
Yeah, I use a lot of a high percentage of garden soil in mine. The fertilizing is only because it's a closed system. That's the only reason. I don't fertilize anything else, and except that wine cup in my sunroom. But you're right. They do like native soil, and in my meadow talk this afternoon, the more fertile the soil is, the poorer native plants do. They flop. And diversity in a meadow is negatively affected by fertility. It's a stressor for native plants. So you are absolutely right. So you may, if you want to have a container, then you can pick lower ones that aren't going to flop. You can stake them. You can put grasses around them to hold them up. But again, it's a closed system, and that's why you need to fertilize. Yeah.
Why do you recommend no manure?
Why do you recommend no manure?
We know. I don't know. I think there's a lot of variables to manure. It's not necessary. I mean, I don't know. There's disease. Oh, you mean the processed manure? He doesn't have processed manure, but I mean, I think it also thinking about this, it also compacts over time. It doesn't it's not that porous, depending on, Okay, you know what? I'm not dogmatic about this. I would like you to start a study in your spare time.
That's all the time. That's all the time we have for questions. I apologize. But we are going into our lunch session, and not to take away from Nancy's lunch, but I'm sure she's happy to answer any future questions.
For a few minutes.
And thank you to everybody in the chat that was hanging around with us in the beginning. We go give Nancy a round of applause.
If you need a business card, I got it. They're all good. Thank you.